let's just talk. Let me share my own thoughts, 2 cents. No one really asked, but I really, really want to share my own thoughts. I'm also just thinking back now about when I was in my 20s and how it would have been nice in my earlier 20s, that is, I'm still in my 20s. In my earlier 20s, how it would have been nice to just get some advice, some 2 cents from somebody a little bit older. I think it would have made a huge difference. There's something very nice about having wise counsel. But girls, you don't have to move with the times or with the culture. And I'm aware that there is just sort of a pressure. There is a pressure to do what everyone else is doing. And if you're not doing what everyone else is doing, then you're kind of looked down on and you are kind of made to feel like there's something wrong with you. So I'm aware that it can be very hard to resist the pressure of moving with the times or moving with the culture and doing what everyone else is doing, but you really, really don't have to. I'm also aware that it can be very isolating because when the majority of people, majority of your age mates are doing this and you're not, and maybe the answer will be everyone else is doing it, and then you can ask yourself, but why do I want to do what everyone else is doing? And maybe you're like, I don't know. Or maybe you're just like, I actually don't feel good about myself and I feel incomplete, or I just feel the need to look like everyone, be like everyone, because I'm afraid that I'll be alone or no one will accept me or no one will like me. And why am I afraid of that? See, so the more you ask yourself the whys, the more likely you're going to get to a place where like, okay, I can understand why I'm doing this now. Hi community, welcome back to Acupfulll. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. If you are new here, so happy to have you here. Very, very, very happy to have you here. I absolutely appreciate the support. The community is growing and I'm really, really grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for sharing the podcast. Thank you for showing up in the way that you are. It means a lot to me. So, if you are new around these parts, then you probably won't know what I'm talking about. But if you are a loyal listener, this episode is going to be a little bit different to what you are usually used to. I am possibly going to introduce a new segment, a new part to the podcast called Epic Sisters Advice. If I get a good enough response, if I get a good amount of feedback, then I will definitely do so. Otherwise, it's just going to be a once-off. It will just be this episode. I just want to see if this is something that you guys are wanting to hear, if you are interested in it. I'm an older sister to two very lovely human beings. I absolutely adore my brother and my sister, and I'm always sharing advice with them, and I'm always sharing sort of bits of knowledge that I've picked up along the way, wisdom, experiences from different things. And I was like to myself, you know what? Because of, fun fact, a lot of the listeners of the podcast are quite young. They're in their earlier 20s. Some of you are at the end of your teen years and you are transitioning into your 20s. I was like, why not look and see if you would be interested in having a segment where you send in any questions that you might have, any confusions, any curiosities, and then I can just answer you in an episode. So, like I said, it depends on the feedback that I receive. If a good enough amount of you guys would like for this to be a thing, then we can definitely do that. It obviously depends on what you are wanting to receive it with, if it will be of any value to you. And if it is, then it's going to stick around and we can do that. I know that also some of the younger listeners, some of you might not necessarily have an older sister to speak to or an older brother, or maybe you're not close to the adults in your life, and you are still looking for solid advice and solid support, and I know how important support and just guidance is in the earlier parts of the 20s. So that's another reason why I really wanted to do this and try it out and see if it will work. So yeah, all you need to do, if you are interested, if you would like for me to continue with this, is to send me either an email. The address is in the show notes, or you can send me a DM on TikTok if you have the platform. Either or is perfectly fine, and you can let me know if you're interested. And if you would also like, you can send in a dilemma that you might have or a question that you might have relating to where you are in your 20s, earlier 20s, mid 20s, and I will be more than happy to answer it. So depending on the feedback that I get, like I said, this could potentially be a permanent feature on the podcast. But if not, then it could be just a once-off thing. And then when I am just looking to have different conversations about different topics, then I'll just bring it back and I'll be like, this is my 2 cents on it. No one asked, but this is my 2 cents on it. And to be honest, guys, I really do enjoy being an older sister. I absolutely enjoy sharing the wisdom that I've picked up along the way with my own siblings. And I just, at this point, I feel like some of you do also see me as an older sister. I don't know. That could also just be me. Just me, but that's how I feel. And also, I've had some questions, comments in some of the videos that I've posted on TikTok along the lines of kind of a younger person asking advice from an older person type of thing. That's how I saw it anyways. So yeah, it's another reason why I'm motivated to do this. But in today's episode specifically, I wanted to talk about a few things that I've just picked up from seeing my own siblings, hearing their conversations, but most importantly from social media and just kind of what I'm seeing from the Gen Zers, just the younger age groups, people that are in their early 20s now. I feel like I'm an auntie sometimes, like one of those aunties in their mid to late 30s. Sometimes that's how I feel because I'll be hearing my own siblings speaking, or I'll just be listening to some of the discourse going on between Gen Zers, people in their earlier 20s, and they're having these conversations, and I'm like, that's interesting, that's different. I don't know about that. So I thought, let's just talk. Let me share my own thoughts, 2 cents. No one really asked, but I really, really want to share my own thoughts. I'm also just thinking back now about when I was in my 20s and how it would have been nice in my earlier 20s, that is, I'm still in my 20s. In my earlier 20s, how it would have been nice to just get some advice, some 2 cents from somebody a little bit older. I think it would have made a huge difference. There's something very nice about having wise counsel, even as someone young, and even if you don't understand or you don't really hear where people are coming from, I think it's still good to have that guidance and to have those words of wisdom and just that concern that would be showing up in the form of support and kindness. And I am not intending to project. I'm not intending to judge. I am not intending to point fingers here. I just want to share my own thoughts on certain things and to also encourage you if you're in your earlier 20s, comfort you if you're feeling a little confused. I know I was about a few things. I definitely was. Not anymore. Really grown into myself now, and you will get there too if you're not there yet. But I wasn't as comfortable with myself as I am now, and I feel like I also made certain decisions, took part in certain things because I didn't have a really strong sense of awareness, of self-awareness, strong sense of self, and still trying to figure myself out and doing whatever everyone else was doing what was trendy, being significantly influenced by social media and just culture. So let me put on my big sister boots. I'm wearing my big sister boots now. I just want to say, girls, if there are any guys listening, guys, because there is a small amount, quite a small amount of guys that listen. I just don't know if you would be listening to this episode, but if you hear me say girls a lot, it's because majority of the people that listen are the girls. That's what the stats say anyways. But girls, you don't have to move with the times or with the culture. And I'm aware that there is just sort of a pressure. There is a pressure to do what everyone else is doing. And if you're not doing what everyone else is doing, then you're kind of looked down on, and you are kind of made to feel like there's something wrong with you. So I'm aware that it can be very hard to resist the pressure of moving with the times or moving with the culture and doing what everyone else is doing, but you really, really don't have to. I'm also aware that it can be very isolating, because when the majority of people, majority of your age mates are doing this and you're not, obviously you feel like you're standing out, and you possibly are, but it comes to pass. It does. It's not gonna stay like that forever, and that's also a thing that you shouldn't be doing. Don't do things because of other people are doing it, because at the end of the day, that thing is not going to stay that way, or you're not going to be in that time forever. And so it's not a good enough reason to do a thing because other people are doing it. You should have a good reason for doing a thing. If you are doing that thing because you enjoy it, or if you're doing that thing because you genuinely want to be doing that thing, then it's a different story. But if you're doing it because of you don't want to be isolated, or you are afraid of feeling unloved or unwanted, then that's a completely different story. And I highly do not recommend doing something because other people are doing it. Because also a lot of the times you aren't really going to feel good about yourself after doing it if it's something that you were not really wanting to do. If it's not something that was something that you were excited to do, or that you were really, really passionate about doing. And you don't want to do things and then not feel good, and you don't want to do things and then just feel disappointed in yourself. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you don't have to do things that other people are doing because it's trendy, or it's the culture, it's the thing to do. The other thing is, I know it can feel like you have a lot of time when you are young, when you are in your late teen years, early 20s, mid 20s, but time really doesn't wait for anyone. And when you do things also when you are young, and you're doing them with the attitude of, I've got enough time to reverse the thing that I'm doing, surely it's not that bad. Unfortunately, it can get that bad, especially if it gets out of hand and you're trying to, for example, you're doing the thing because you're trying to self-soothe, or you're doing it because it's trendy. It really can get out of hand. So, for example, when I was growing up, in my early 20s, when I was in university, there was a wave of feminism that was very radical, and that was very, how do I put it? It was encouraging sort of this idea that when you are empowered within yourself, having multiple people that you are going out with, even multiple sexual partners, is healthy, and that's good for you. And it was planting the idea in a lot of our minds that freedom is wearing skimpy clothing, and it's going to Marie Stopes. If you fall pregnant, then you can just go to Marie Stopes and get an abortion. And it was just encouraging the idea to a certain extent that recklessness and living recklessly is empowering. But that was unfair from where I'm standing now. It was unfair to push that on young people or on people that were already sort of lost and confused and still trying to figure themselves out. And it was unfair to do that as well, because that's not what true freedom is. That's not what being liberated means. And there are consequences to doing things like that. And that wasn't the messaging at the time. It was never that getting an abortion, these are the disadvantages. It was never that dressing skimpily and going out at night and getting drunk and living that reckless life has consequences. Because obviously when you are drunk, you're at a party, you're amongst people that you don't know. Let's say you didn't go with people that you do know, or you're not in a group that you feel safe with, and you've gone out and now you're drinking and you're just having the time of your life. That's not liberation. That's endangering your life. You shouldn't be getting drunk and blacking out when you are alone in a strange place. You shouldn't be drinking and blacking out, period. It's not good for you. And the idea that that's what true freedom and true liberation is unfair from where I'm standing now. So it can definitely get out of hand. It can become really, really bad. And sometimes it's not liberation. It's a problem. It's an issue that you've developed. It's an addiction. You're not expressing your freedom. There's a much deeper issue. So I'm saying all of that to say that just be careful, because it can get out of hand and it can cause more problems than anything else. And you might have time, but don't do things that are going to cause you permanent damage. Don't get into a car with a drunk driver. That's reckless. It's not cool. Don't have sex with multiple people, especially unprotected sex. That's not cool. That's reckless. You're putting your life in harm's way. You're putting your life in harm's way for things like sexually transmitted diseases, pregnancy, girls. It's not worth it. And like I'm saying, this is not me passing on judgment. I'm really not judging anyone. I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone. But I am saying that you need to just be extra careful with the choices that you are making, because the thing is, when you make that choice, there is a big possibility, especially the bigger the risk, the more riskier the thing, the higher the chance of the outcome being negative, impacting you negatively, changing your life forever. So yeah, just make sure to be careful and give yourself a chance to understand what being truly liberated is and what freedom actually looks like, right? Don't say this is what freedom is just because somebody else is doing it, or just because people are telling you that that's like the cool thing to be doing. I was reckless in my earlier 20s. I was. And at first it was trendy. It was being part of the culture. It was being part of the movement. And then that recklessness turned into self-soothing, right? And girls, I understand, and I speak from a place of sympathy. I'm sympathizing with anyone that might have made a decision out of feeling like if they don't, then they're going to be left behind. If they don't, then what are people going to say about them? And I do get it, but it's not worth it. It really isn't worth it. And it catches up with you also. Like you'll just be sitting with yourself. You don't want to be sitting with yourself and thinking, I really shouldn't have done that. That didn't make me feel good. I really actually don't want to do that. But because there's just something hurting inside of me and everyone else is doing it. It made sense at the time. It's very important to work on having a good understanding of who you are as a person, and also asking yourself why. That's very, very helpful. When you ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I feel the need to behave like this? Then you can really get to a place where you can answer yourself earnestly, honestly, and even with a lot of understanding and love. So, why am I drinking every day? Why am I drinking every weekend? Why do I feel the need to smoke weed so much? And maybe the answer will be everyone else is doing it. And then you can ask yourself, but why do I want to do what everyone else is doing? And maybe you're like, I don't know. Or maybe you're just like, I actually don't feel good about myself and I feel incomplete, or I just feel the need to look like everyone, be like everyone, because I'm afraid that I'll be alone, or no one will accept me, or no one will like me. And why am I afraid of that? See, so the more you ask yourself the whys, the more likely you're going to get to a place where, like, okay, I can understand why I'm doing this now. And it's so important and it's so helpful to ask yourself why. So, yeah, just ask yourself, why am I doing this? For example, dressing provocatively. You have to ask yourself why. Why? Ask yourself, do I want my body to be on display like that for everyone to see? Am I wearing this because I like it or because it's trendy? Do I want attention or do I just feel really comfortable in my skin? Consuming alcohol excessively. That's another thing you need to ask yourself why you're doing it. And like I said, guys, it's just not a good enough reason to drink excessively, smoke excessively, party excessively because it's the trendy thing to do. And I know that it makes the most sense when you're young. It makes sense in one way or another where you're like, it's really not that deep. But it is. It really is. And it can have adverse effects on you, on your body, on your mental health, on your well-being later on down the line. So, yeah, you have to ask yourself. I was saying that consuming alcohol excessively, when I used to drink alcohol and got to establishments or went to establishments such as clubs and bars, I would always hear people say, I want to drink until I can't walk or talk. Or something like, I don't want to have a recollection of the night. And there is nothing good about it. That is so unsafe for both men and women. Men can get mugged and they can get their stuff robbed. They can get robbed and, you know, they can have their phone taken away from them, their money, their belongings. I don't want to even talk about the admin of having to go and redo things like your license, your ID, your cards, the admin of having to now stop your cards. And if your phone is stolen, for example, right? You're mugged, you were drunk, and you don't remember what happened. You can't even stop your cards because now you don't have your phone. So you have to wait until the next day for the banks to open for you to go and stop your cards. And it obviously is, as it is, it's unsafe. We have very high crime rates, high crime stats in South Africa. But now putting yourself in a position where you are going to get drunk and you are not aware of your surroundings, you cannot protect yourself, that's not a good position to put yourself in. For women, it's extremely dangerous because you are now in a place where you are putting yourself in extreme danger when you are getting drunk and having blackouts, especially if you are someone that maybe goes out alone. That's not safe as well. Don't go out alone. And now you're gonna get drunk, and you are also running the risk of having your belongings stolen from you, but also then just you as an individual are unsafe. You are more prone to a person taking advantage of you. As it is, we have really sick people that take advantage of women in broad daylight. We are unsafe. So now when you are getting drunk and you're out, it's at night, you are putting yourself in a further risky position. And most importantly, you have to ask yourself, why am I wanting to get so drunk that I cannot remember what happened the night before? What is the issue? Because something is not right when you are going beyond the point of enjoyment now, and you're just putting yourself in a position of being extremely unsafe. Excessive partying. There is nothing wrong with having fun as a young person. One party, no harm. Especially if you are taking all of the precautionary measures, not overstaying your welcome. There really is no need to stay all night. I know that you guys might not hear me, but there's no need to stay all night. You can have a good time and then leave. You can go back to your house, have a good time, and then go back home. You know, keeping your drink on you, not going anywhere with strangers or a person that you don't know, staying with the people that you came with, or the person that you came to the place with. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. You can definitely do that. You can go out, have a good time, and do it responsibly. But doing it irresponsibly, because there is an irresponsible way of doing these things, that can really have long lasting effects on you. And as it is, guys, like, we just have people out there that are not stable mentally, that are just not good people. Some are not stable mentally and some are just not good people. And it's important to take precautionary measures, because people are lacing people's drinks at these establishments or at parties, even intimate parties. People aren't ashamed, they aren't afraid to lace a person's drink. And you need to constantly be sober or be aware of your surroundings, right? So when you are someone that is not taking care of themselves, not sober or not aware of your surroundings, and you also just kind of become burdensome on other people that you are with, I think that that is very unfair, and I don't think that that's something that we should be doing. And you need to ask yourself why again. Like I said, asking that why question is very, very important. You also shouldn't be partying every day. I don't think that that's healthy. Or partying every single weekend. I don't think that that is healthy. I also think that there's so much power and enjoyment in finding other things that you enjoy doing, finding other things that are a good way to let off steam, things that don't always involve being in super loud environment with a loud radio and people talking over each other. Other ways to stimulate your mind. There are many, many other ways. You just have to explore them. And I think that that's something that would be good to do. I wish I was exploring more of the other ways to stimulate my mind and enjoy myself in my earlier 20s. I'm glad I'm doing it now. But I also realized, looking back, that I wasted a lot of time doing the same thing on rotation. And I know, varsity life, there's just, especially when you live close to your institution of learning, or especially when you live in a place where there are a lot of establishments to drink and party. I know that sometimes it can feel like, what else am I going to do, or what else is there to do? Explore. Have a good time exploring and looking into other things, because there are other things to do. I really wish I had looked into other things. I think it would have made the university experience even more fun, because drinking and partying on a loop, no man, that was not it. Looking back, Sex with multiple partners, otherwise known as, or otherwise spoken of as, a rasta. I've seen a couple of videos on TikTok especially where some girls have spoken about the regrets that they've had, or the regrets that they have, of having had multiple sexual partners, especially women in their earlier 20s, where they speak about how at the time they felt really pressured to have sex, period, but to have sex with multiple people. Because again, just want to go back to what I said earlier on, there was this idea, and it comes from way back when. I think it's actually just the sexual revolution in general, that made women believe that freedom, true liberation is being able to have sex with whoever you want, whenever you want, and not really shedding light on the consequences or disadvantages of it. And so many women have been saying that they are now choosing to be abstinent, and that they want to be a lot pickier with the people that they choose to be intimate with. And I think that that's a good thing. But if it's something that has already happened and you feel regret, I hope that you know that it's okay to feel the regret that you're feeling, and that you are making a good decision by choosing to step back and choosing to focus on not being intimate with a person that you are not serious with. And if you are in a place where you might not necessarily understand what the big deal is, then I really hope that you give yourself a chance to just look into it, and also ask yourself if this is something that you actually want to be doing, if it's something that you actually feel good doing. Having sex with multiple people, how does it make you feel? And is it something that you wanted to do in the first place because you actually felt liberated, or was it because of you wanted to explore, or was it because of everyone else was doing it, or was it just because you wanted validation? But yeah, there are also just so many risks involved in doing that: spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. So it's something that you really need to sit and think about. Also, what frustrates me about the sexual revolution and this idea that was fed to women throughout the decades, that sex is just sex, is false and it's unfair. It's such an intimate act. And it's also, girls, it's gross. It's very gross. Let's be honest. It's very, very gross. Just heads up. This might be graphic to some people. It might be a bit too much. So either lower the volume or skip, right? But the exchange of bodily fluids and saliva when you're kissing, sweating on each other. Yeah, I know that this has got a lot to do with maturing and realizing things, just waking up to the truth, especially post being a feminist. But sex is not casual. There is nothing casual about sex. And the term casual sex, flawed. Flawed, because sex, casual sex is not a casual act. It isn't. There's just so much intimacy that goes into it, and that's why it is an act that you need to really sit and think about before you participate in it. And you need to sit and think about who you're going to do it with, and why, what is motivating you, because there's just so much that goes into it, and there's so much that you are not going to get back, right? And I just have such a different idea and different view on it. It's just so it's so it's so intimate, it's so special. It's something that you shouldn't just be doing with anyone just for the fun of it. And I know that some of you might not agree with this, but men and women are not built the same, and science literally says that women are more likely to become attached to a man, especially after sex. So if you have had casual sex, in, is it inverted marks or in quotations or in brackets, if you have had casual sex and, my goodness, I don't like that word, and you didn't feel good afterwards, or you've had multiple sexual encounters with multiple people and you didn't feel good afterwards, then, or you felt sad or you felt overwhelmed, and it was just that you were never going to see that person again, then it's because of, there's just a different kind of experience for men and for women. But either way, I listened to an episode on one of my favorite podcasts, Diary of a CEO, and the guest was saying that either way, casual sex is not good for both men and women. I'm going to link that episode down below. If you are interested in listening to it, please do so. It was really, really good, very insightful. She spoke extensively about the effects of the sexual revolution, the negative effects of the sexual revolution on society, and just how casual sex within itself poses a significant threat to communities and to societies. So that's just my take on it. I don't believe that the term casual sex shouldn't even exist, because there's nothing casual about it. The next thing that I really wanted to get into was porn, or is porn. And I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I think that is another thing that can have a very negative impact. Not I think, I know, especially after doing research and listening to various podcast episodes where the host had a doctor in the field of psychology come on and talk about the effects of something like porn. I just wanted to say that it's not worth it, and that even if everyone else is doing it, it's not something that you should take lightly or that you should think is cool to do, because one of the big things that it does is it affects a person's sex drive, it affects a person's idea of intimacy and how they are going to engage with their future or current romantic partner. And the one expert that I was listening to talk about this was saying that porn is significantly affecting men's desires, men's idea of intimacy with women. And it's changing the makeup of our society, and it's changing men's behavior. It's even changing women's behavior. So just be very, very careful with that. That can really be something that clouds your judgment, and that can also significantly affect you physically, mentally, and emotionally. The next one is doom scrolling. You know, that endless scrolling on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, and just also how a lot of people are now, and when I say a lot of people, I'm talking about a lot of young people, how now a lot of their opinions, their ideas are being shaped by social media. It's very, very dangerous. You do need to think for yourself, and you do need to have your own ideas. And you also need to ask yourself, what is this thing that's informing this idea that I have? What is this thing that's informing this social idea that I have, this political idea that I have? Are all of my thoughts now being shaped by the discourse that I'm seeing on social media? Is how I live my life being affected by how much I'm on social media? How much time am I spending scrolling every day? What else am I doing outside of scrolling? What else am I doing outside of arguing with people on social media? How valuable is this to my life? Do I even need social media like this? Has this become an addiction? These are not bad questions to ask yourself, but we live in such a different time also, I guess, where social media has grown. The presence of social media has grown so much, and there are all of these ideas and all of these voices and all of these thoughts. And if you aren't careful, what other people believe, what other people think, what other people are coming up with on social media can really end up affecting your life and the quality of your life. I want to make an example. On TikTok, very recently, there was something called the orange peel theory. And women were asking their boyfriends to peel an orange for them. And some women had an encounter where their boyfriend was either too busy to peel the orange for them, or he was just like not interested. And the conclusion from that whole experiment then became, if your partner peels your orange for you without any hesitation, then you must stay with him and he loves you. And if he doesn't, and he's hesitant or he's impatient or he just doesn't want to peel it for you for whatever reason, then he doesn't love you and you shouldn't stay with him. And I asked myself, when did we get here? Because what even is an orange peel theory? And then there's the taxi cab theory. And then there is this and there is that. And it's just too much. It's just so much. And a lot of it is also ridiculous. There are some real standards that you need to have for yourself, and some real measures that you must have that you're going to use to decide whether somebody is a right partner for you. And a person being willing or not being willing to peel an orange for you, I don't think that that's the best way to decide whether they love you or not, or whether they are for you, or whether they should be your partner or not. So we need to be extra careful, and we really need to understand why we are partaking in certain things, and if it's even worth it, if it's even worth spending your time considering some of these things that people are saying. And you should be able to measure and see if this is actually worth considering. You should. And that's why having a strong sense of self, and being self-aware, and having a good understanding of who you are, what your values are, what your morals are, what your principles are, what your standards are, is really important. Because if you don't, then you run the risk of being caught up doing what everyone else is doing, having a social media mind or brain, and not necessarily knowing why you are in agreement with this, or why you are following this, why you are doing this. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, be careful. Social media can really become an addiction. It can affect your relationships. It can affect how you see yourself. It can affect your spending habits also. There's just so much overindulgence that happens on social media, and overconsumption. 20-step skincare routine. Oh, why? No, why? 20-step, even 10, even 5 products is just too much for me, honestly. And we also need to think about the long-term effects that these things are going to have on us. Putting so many products on your skin cannot be good for you. In the long term, I don't think that that's good for you. Any dermatologist, even the dermatologists that I've seen on social media, okay, well, the dermatologists that are not just after making money or after views, will tell you that a basic skincare routine consists of a gentle face cleanser, face cream, and sunscreen. SPF is very, very important. And then at night, same thing. And that's really it. But over consumerism and capitalism is convincing us, especially, and using social media. The brands are using social media to convince people that they need to have multiple products to turn their skin into this and make themselves look like this. But are they explaining what the long-term effects can be, what the damage can be to your skin if you do this, if you do too much of this? So it's very, very important to again ask yourself why you are doing this. Extremely important. I think another thing that really concerns me that I see is individualism that is promoted on social media. Me, I, and that can also be really dangerous, because we do not live in isolation. We live amongst other people. We live in a society, and I just feel like what needs to be spoken of more is the importance of forging real, authentic community, real, authentic relationships. And I will always advocate for prioritizing yourself and taking care of yourself, but everything always being about you, and you always being at the center of everything, and you always living as if there are no other people around you, is not a good thing. We need each other. We literally need each other for our well-being. I recorded an episode on love in friendship. I did a love series, called it the love series, and I did an episode on love and friendship. And some of the research that I found stated that when we have good relationships, good friendships, it stimulates, promotes our growth, our physical well-being, our emotional well-being, and our mental well-being. And it increases or extends our lifespan. So this idea that you can do things on your own and that you can get ahead and make it and live your best life on your own and that you don't need other people is false. And that's something else that social media tends to promote and idolize, I want to say, without explaining what the disadvantages are. And this is what frustrates me sometimes, that there's always just the romanticization of the advantages of things like individualism and the sexual revolution and overconsumption and various other things, but what about the disadvantages? Why are we not giving people an opportunity to hear the good and the bad about things? So I'm going to go back and say, ask yourself why. Why are you constantly in pursuit of things that are only going to make you happy, that put you at the top of everyone else? Why? Ask yourself why. Very, very important. I'd hoped that this episode wasn't going to be this long. I did not want it to be this long, but it is anyways. Thank you so much for joining me. This is definitely where we are ending this week's episode. It was kind of all over the place, but also not. I really enjoyed talking through this. I hope you enjoyed listening. Let me know if you want this to be a regular thing, and we can definitely do that. Like I said, if you want this to be a regular thing, all you need to do is send an email to acupfulll@gmail.com. That is a cupful with 3 L's at gmail.com. Or otherwise, you can send me a DM on at acupfulllpod on TikTok and share your dilemma, share your situation, ask a question, and I would be more than happy to answer. And then it can just be something that everybody partakes in, everybody shares in the conversation. You can then share any advice that you might have for the person that left the dilemma or left the question. You can send back your advice via DM, via email, or you can even just leave any advice that you might have for that person who has asked that question or left that dilemma in the question box on whichever platform you are listening on. Otherwise, again, thank you so much for joining me. Absolutely appreciate it. I hope that this was valuable. Don't forget that you can put anyone that you want to put on. Let them know that they can go on over to a Cupful Pod on TikTok if they want to test the waters first. Otherwise, they can find a Cupful on all listening platforms, anywhere where they listen to their podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, that's soon going to be YouTube Music. Listen, everywhere, really. Have a lovely remainder of this week. Rest when you need to, work when you need to. Take good care of yourself and don't feel pressured to do the things that you don't want to be doing. And ask yourself why. Why? If you're feeling pressured, ask yourself why. And most importantly, keep doing the things that fill your cup